Hello, welcome back to Algebra 1. We're going to spend a few minutes working some additional problems, learning about how to handle order of operations now that we know about exponents. I'm not going to write the rules down again because ultimately you're going to have to remember them all. But there's really only 4 rules that we have so far, and that is the number 1 priority. We always do parentheses or brackets, innermost to outermost. That's the number 1 thing we do. The number 2 thing we do after that is do our exponents. The number 3 thing we do is multiplication and division left to right, and number 4 is addition, subtraction left to right. And so we're just going to apply those rules as we work the problems here. If we have, for instance, 1 times 10 cubed, or 10 to the power of 3, plus 7 times 10 squared, plus 7 times 10 plus 6. How would we simplify that? Well, we're going to use our order of operations. We have 3 sets of parentheses, so we have to do what's inside of those before we do any of this addition, for instance. So we're going to deal with what's inside of here, and separately we'll deal with what's inside of here, and then also what's inside of here. Now, what's inside of here, we have multiplication, and then we also have an exponent. What do you think comes first, just of these 2 things here? Well, the exponent comes first. It's higher up the list. So inside of here, we're going to have 1 times. What is 10 cubed? That's 10 times 10 times 10. So 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. 10 times 10 is 100, times 10 more is 1,000. All right, and then in this set of parentheses, we have the 7 times, but this 10 squared, we're going to do that first. He's an exponent. 10 times 10 is 100. And then inside of here, there's no exponent really. Well, there really is a 10 to the power of 1 there, but you don't need to do that. It's multiplied by itself. You know, it's just the number itself, so there's really no real exponent there to worry about. So 7 times 10, we can go ahead and do that. That's 70. And then we have plus 6. Then we go back to these parentheses and make sure that we're good here. The only thing left in here is multiplication, so we can drop the parentheses and write this as 1,000 plus inside of here is multiplication. 7 times 100 is 700. We drop those parentheses because we're basically done. We can drop the parentheses around the 70 because we're done there, and we can just write the 6 down. Now, the only thing left is to add everything together left to right. So when you do all that, you're going to get 1,776. 1776. All right, that's the final answer. So you do inside the parentheses first, but even when you're working inside of them, you still have to follow the rule of the order of operations. The exponents come before these multiplications. All right? Now, the next problem we have is going to be bracket 5 to the power of 3 plus negative 3 to the power of 3, close bracket, divide by 7 squared. So now we have to really apply the order of operations carefully to make sure that we're doing everything right. First order of business, we have to do what's inside of parentheses or brackets first. So we have big brackets here. We have to work with everything in here first before you do anything over there at all. So we work and focus on what's inside of here. So here we have some exponents going on, but then we also have addition. What comes first? Well, addition always comes dead last. So we have to deal with these exponents first. So 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Times 5 more is 125. So the 5 cubed comes out to 125. Now, the negative 3 cubed is negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. So it's better to take this a little bit slow, and that's why I want to make sure you understand it. So we work left to right when we're doing this. Negative 3 times negative 3 is going to give you positive 9 because negative times negative is positive. So this will be 9, but again times negative 3. You still have to do that. What is 9 times negative 3? It's negative 27 because negative times positive gives you negative. So you get that negative 27. So we figured out 5 cubed is 125. Negative 3 cubed is negative 27. So let's rewrite everything. And I'll do it in blue here actually. It'll be 5 cubed is 125. That's what we have figured out. And then plus, we have negative 27. All right, because that's what negative 3 cubed was. We'll close the bracket, and now we will put the division symbol, and then we have this guy. So we're still not done inside the brackets. We've done the exponents first. That's important because we're working only inside the brackets. The exponents come first. Now we have to handle this addition. What is 125 plus a negative 27? Or you can think about it as 125 minus 27. When you have plus negative, it's really just minus, right? So what you have here inside the bracket is going to be 98. So 125 minus 27 is 98. We can drop the bracket now because we've done everything inside of there. Once we've handled this addition, that's all that's left. And then we have division here, 7 squared. So all we've done is we've done everything inside the bracket first and we got 98. What do you think we do next, division or exponent? Okay, those are the only two choices we have. Exponent always comes first. So what you're going to have here is 98 divided by, what is 7 times 7? That's what 7 squared means. 7 times 7 is 49. And 98 divided by 49, because that's the only thing left to do, is 2. Okay, so that's the answer, 2. All right, pretty simple stuff. Well, I shouldn't say it's simple. It's very rule-based. Once you understand the rules, then it's just bang, bang, bang through the rules. So you have number 1, do your parentheses. Number 2, do your exponents. Number 3, do your multiplication division. Number 4, do your addition and subtraction. All right, we're going to work some more of these guys, just a couple quick ones. But we're going to have some variables involved now. What if we let the variable a equal 3, and we'll let the variable b equal -2. This is algebra after all, so we want to get some practice with different kinds of problems. And we have the expression 4 plus ab squared. 4 plus ab squared. How would we simplify that? How would we calculate the answer to that, knowing that a is equal to 3 and b is equal to -2? So the way we write it down is we first substitute in 4 plus. Now we have a. A is equal to 3. So we'll write a 3 down. B is squared. Now, B is the only thing that's squared. A is not involved in this exponent. There's no parentheses. So when you don't have any parentheses, the square only applies to what's directly down below here. So B is squared. But B is -2. So it's simpler and easier to write it and more clear to write it as parentheses -2 squared. That's how you need to write it, because if you don't put the parentheses here and you just put -2 squared, it's going to look like subtraction going on in here, and it's going to look like the 2 would be squaring only, or the square would be only applying to the number 2. But you don't mean that. You mean the variable b is squared. So all of -2, the whole thing is squared. So you need to put it in parentheses to force that to happen. All right, and we've done some examples to show you that before, but that's what's happening here. So now you have 4 plus, we can't do the addition now. We have to do the exponent first. The exponent first. So we have 3 times, what is -2 squared? That's -2 times -2. And so you should be able to convince yourself that -2 times -2 is +4, because negative times negative is positive. So all we did is we did the exponent first here. And now we look at this and say, what do we do next? Well, multiplication is always going to come before addition. So we have 4 plus, what is 3 times 4? 12. And then now we only have one thing left to do. 4 plus 12 is going to be 16. And that's the final answer for that problem. So it's very important when you're plugging in values, especially negative values. Sometimes you're going to have to add your own parentheses. When you have a negative number and that whole thing has to be squared, you need to add those yourself to make sure that you're doing the right thing. Now we're still going to have a and b set the way that they are, but we're going to change the problem slightly. 4 plus ab squared. Notice it looks very similar to this one, but now we have a set of parentheses. That changes things. Let's see how it changes. Let's plug in, first of all, 4 plus a is 3 times b, which is -2, and I'm going to write it in parentheses like this. The reason I'm going to write it in parentheses here is because if I put 3 with a dot, -2, you could do that, but it looks a little confusing. 3 dot -2. It looks at a glance like you're saying 3 minus 2, and you don't want that. You want it to be clear that you're multiplying, so just wrap it in parentheses when you have negatives like that. It makes it clearer. Now you look at this and say, what do I do first? Well, it's true that I have an exponent here, but I must do what's inside of parentheses first. Inner to outer. Inside here, there's nothing to do. It's just a number. So I need to work on simplifying everything inside of here first, inside of the parentheses. I've got addition going on, and I've got multiplication going on. Multiplication always happens first. So what I will have is 4 plus, what is 3 times -2? It's going to be -6. Because 3 times 2 is 6, negative times positive is negative. And so all I've done is I've replaced this quantity with -6. Again, I have to still work inside of here. I have to do the addition. What is 4 plus -6? 4 plus -6, you should know by now 6 minus 4 is 2, and the sign goes with the larger absolute value, so it's -2, and I'm still inside of the parentheses. I'm leaving the parentheses there because the entire quantity here is squared. So I want to keep the parentheses in place because this square is now going to apply to everything inside of it, just like it is written here. So what you have here is -2 times -2. -2 times -2 is +4 because negative times negative is positive. So you see the difference. That's why we choose these problems like this. This is 4 plus AB squared, and you get 16. This is 4 plus AB quantity squared, and you get 4. Two totally different answers. The reason they're different is because the order of operations forces them to be different. And so that's why we're getting practice with them. All right. We'll do one more. Let's go over here, and we will say, what if we have a cubed plus 2b cubed all divided by a plus 2b. All right, so now what we have is we plug in the values. A is 3, so it's 3 cubed plus 2 times b cubed, so it's -2 cubed. And on the bottom, a is 3 plus 2 times b, which is -2. All right, now we work on the top and the bottom of this fraction separately because you can kind of think of the top having its own invisible set of parentheses surrounding everything, and then the bottom has its own invisible set of parentheses. Now on the top we have an exponent, multiplication here, and addition. What comes first? Exponent comes first of all of those things. So 3 cubed, 3 times 3 times 3, if you write that down and do it, it's going to be 27 plus 2. Now this guy, -2 times -2 times -2, if you go off and do that, you'll find that that's going to be -8. All right, -2 times -2 times -2. And on the bottom, you have 3 plus, what is 2 times -2? 2 times -2, because here we have addition and multiplication. Multiplication comes first, is going to be -4. Now we go off to the next step. We continue working on the top and bottom separately. We have addition, and we have multiplication. Multiplication comes first, so we'll have 27, and 2 times -8 is -16, so we'll write it as -16 on the top. And on the bottom, we have 3 plus -4, so we can go ahead and do that addition, and we handle it by, we're going to get the answer of -1 because 4 minus 3 is 1, and the sign goes with the larger absolute value. Okay, so on the top, what is 27 minus 16? 27 minus 16 is 11. And on the bottom, you're going to have -1. So now, after you've totally simplified the top and gotten 11, and totally simplified the bottom and gotten -1, the last thing to do is the division. 11 divided by -1 is -11, because positive divided by negative gives you the positive value. So make sure you understand this concept of order of operations with exponents. It's basically you do the parentheses first, you do the exponents, then you do multiplication, division, then you do addition and subtraction. You'll get lots of practice with this as we move on throughout our studies of algebra, because every single problem will involve exponents, parentheses, and all these other things. So follow me on to the next lesson. We'll continue our studies of algebra here in this class.